I've collected all 5 pieces of the puzzle. I summon Exodia!
Ah! Exodia! No one's ever been able to summon him before!
I activate Millennium Ankh. I summon Exodia!
Ah! Exodia! So, do you have an answer to Appaloosa, or...
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-minute testing. That OMO last week was a real blue baller, huh? Oh, here's the Millennium cards for 6 seconds, followed by a full Snake Eye combo. Well, today we're going to pretend that snakes aren't absolutely everywhere and play this archetype as it was intended, with an arm and a leg. Presenting Millennium Exodia.
Damn you, Explodia!
So here's the list. The best we could find was a deck that bubbled, but it's still fine. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. I've been shilling Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck for, well, years at this point, and I'm happy to announce I have no intention of stopping anytime soon. By now, they've become the most complete repository of tournament tops on the internet, the best place to jam prog with friends, and of course, still host strategy articles. Recently, they've added a new piece of infrastructure to the fold, a 3-card arena draft, draftable with card pools featuring classic formats, Master Duel, or within any parameters you like. Give it, or any of their other features, a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. With that, let's mess with Millennium. Millennium is a series of powerful monsters modeled after some of Yu-Gi-Oh's most iconic and earliest vanillas. Most of them, like Millennium Shield, erroneously referred to themselves as Millennium items because Konami hadn't really decided what a Millennium item was just yet. These pseudo-millenniums are back with a vengeance, and now serve the most powerful monster in the game, Exodia the Forbidden One. The 3 Millennium monsters form a tight resource loop that, alongside Millennium Ankh, gives consistent access to the cover card of info, the unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, which is both a spell negate and sets a board wipe. This is usually the part of the video where I then detail all the small synergies that make these monsters adaptable, but unfortunately, I now need to let you down. This deck is very one-note, incredibly consistent at making its end board, but not fantastic at doing, well, anything else. It's a very 2016 style of deck, reminiscent of ABC, so it's not surprising that you get to break out some cards that were good around that time as well. The deck doesn't usually use its normal summon, and as a result, we can play some truly impressive cards that have been mostly lost to time post a Rise Heart ban, the Ball, and the Golem. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, we have the 5 special cards, the 5 pieces of the puzzle that do absolutely nothing. Theoretically, this deck can occasionally assemble Exodia as a win condition, but realistically, these are in the deck to facilitate use of this card, the Millennium Ankh. You can show 5 Forbidden One monster cards from your hand, deck, or face-up field to special summon an unstoppable Exodia Incarnate from your extra deck. Then, you can shuffle face-up monster cards you control into the deck, except Exodia monster cards whose original levels are 10 or higher, and Millennium monster cards, and you can't summon for the rest of the turn. Then after activation, this card is shuffled into the deck instead of sending it to the graveyard. This is an incredibly powerful effect that is only made possible by playing 5 extremely bricky Garnets. For monsters, we are on 3 copies of Sen Engine 2. Sen Engine wakes after a Millennium. Can be destroyed by monster effects, and once per turn, if this card is in your hand, you can put it in your spell trap zone as a face-up continuous spell. God, everyone's Crystal Beasts now. And while this card is a continuous spell, you can pay 2,000 or reveal an Ankh in your hand to special summon it, then add a Millennium monster from your deck to your hand. You're going to want to keep your life points high because of the effect of our fusion monster we will get to momentarily, which you can only do by access to Millennium Ankh. Golem that guards the Millennium treasures makes the activation of your Millennium Ankh unnegatable, and each of the following effects are once per turn. If it's in your hand, you can put it in your spell trap zone as a continuous spell, then can be summoned for 2,000 life points, and then you can add a Wedju Temple from your deck to your hand. We'll do a quick sidebar to get to that. Wedju Temple during your main phase allows you to put a monster from your hand into your spell trap zone as a continuous spell, then a Millennium monster from your deck in your spell trap zone as a face-up continuous spell, and if a Millennium monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can put it in your spell trap zone as a face-up continuous spell instead of sending it to the graveyard. This card is so integral to the plays of this deck that we are playing not only Terraforming, but also Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. We are playing that alongside a Crystal Beast, Cobalt Eagle, and 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods to ensure we always have it, and in scenarios where we do need a corner case additional field spell, we are playing a copy of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Finally, our last monster is Shield of the Millennium Dynasty, which can't be destroyed by spell trap effects, and once per turn if in your hand can be put into the spell trap zone, and while in your spell and trap zone can be summoned for 2,000 life points, or by revealing a Millennium Ankh in your hand to add a Millennium Ankh from your deck to your hand. sort of counterintuitively, this occasionally happens at the end of your combo. The Millennium Ankh is the card that saves you all your life points. It's frustrating, to say the least. We are playing one copy of Obliterate Blaze. It says that if you have a level 10 or higher monster on the field with Exodia in its name, it gains these effects. You can pay half your life points to destroy as many cards in the spell trap zone as possible. Then equip 5 Forbidden 1 monsters from your hand or deck to this card as equip spells to give it 2,000 attack, and you cannot activate other cards' effects for the rest of the turn. And it does piercing if it attacks a defense position monster. I think that's supposed to be Zork on the card. We're playing 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Then for traps, we've got 1 Exod Fires of Rage. This is both Exod and Obliterate, which means it's searchable off the fusion, as we'll see momentarily. And you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. Crazy. This can be banished, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, to add a Forbidden 1 monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand, or shuffle up to 5 Forbidden 1 monsters from your graveyard or banishment into the deck. Finally, we've got 1 Silo Hat Trick for the Rabbit, and then 3 Dimension Shifter, 3 Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode, 3 Lava Golem, and 3 Infinite Impermanence in the extra. We've got 3 copies of the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, which can't be destroyed by card effects, and once per turn if it battles during damage calculation, its attack becomes your life points. Then, once per turn when a spell trap or effect is activated, you can negate that activation, and once per turn during the end phase, you can set either an Exod or an Obliterate spell trap from your deck. Once per turn during your standby phase, you lose 1,000 life points. Importantly, that gain is not till the end of the turn. It becomes your life points when you activate it, and then if you attack a second time, it will add your remaining life points to its existing attack, so it can get out of hand really quickly. We're playing Zeus and Typhon and Varudras because there's 10s. Then Underworld Goddess, Access Code Talker, Nightmare Phoenix, Selene, Dark, Ausa, Donner Dagger for Hire, SP Little Knight, and Silo Hat Rabbit. In the extra, we've just got a lot of stuff. You know this stuff. It's stuff. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Flame Swordsman Infernoble, and God, remember when Peeps was obsessed with this deck? Glad that he's out. We're going to begin with a copy of the Golem. We'll activate the Golem's effect, taking 2,000 in the process in order to grab ourselves a Wedju Temple, which we will then activate, setting this copy of the Leg alongside a Sen Engine. We're going to activate the effect, summoning it for an additional 2, and then grabbing a Shield, which we'll put into the back row, then activate the effect of 2 more life points off the top before we get to our Ankh. We're going to go into a Silo Hat Rabbit. Rabbit is not long for this world, but it is going to be able to set the Silo Hat trick before we fire off Millennium Ankh into a copy of the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. We'll go to the end phase and set a copy of Exod Fires of Rage before we pass back to our opponent. They draw a Droll 6th card. Very funny. They'll go for the effect of their Olivier first, and then send a copy of their Salamander to the graveyard. Down comes Joyeuse, targeting Olivier, and then they'll activate it to cycle back the Flame Swordsman and summon him. They'll activate the effect of the Flame Swordsman. We will chain this Infinite Impermanence. Seems good enough to negate. And afterwards, we're going to go into an Angelica. Angelica effect. They will then activate the Noble Arms Museum, which we might as well negate with the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. They'll Olivier targeting Angelica, Angelica Chainlink 2 to go into Roland, and then afterwards, we're going to go for the Flame Dragon equipped to the Roland, which they'll send for an OSS. That's going to make a Ricardietto. They'll bring back this copy of Fighting Flame Swordsman, and it's Exod Fires of Rage time. Let's wipe the board. They'll bring back Angelica, and we will set a copy of Obliterate Blaze at end step. Let's go to the standby phase. We'll go ahead and take 1,000 off the Unstoppable Exodia. We'll go Silo Hat Trick here, and then activate the effect, targeting the Angelica. Angelica will chain, tagging out for a Roland. Afterwards, we're going to activate the effect of the Maugus to try and draw their way out of this. We will go Obliterate Blaze. They will activate the graveyard effect of the Roland, but our monster is going to get very, very big, very, very quick. All 5 pieces of the puzzle go to the battle phase and pierce for 95 billion damage. So that's how the deck performs on the play, but what does it do on the draw? Our opponent for game 2 is on Runic Whitewoods, and oh my god. We're just 2 pieces off here. They're going first. They're going to go for a Hugin. They'll activate the effect of the Hugin, pitching another Runic spell to go into Runic Fountain. Afterwards, they're going to set 2 and pass. We'll draw for turn. We aren't going to get to win by Exodia. We'll go for the Shield here. We'll activate the effect of the Shield. We'll reveal the Ankh in order to summon it, and we'll grab another Ankh before we activate the effect in order to make the one, the only Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. We'll go to the battle phase and activate the effect in order to increase its attack to 8,000. Our opponent, of course, will Hugin. We will just pass turn here, and then we'll activate the effect of the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. They will infip, and we might as well chain here. They're going to go for the Runic Destruction, which unfortunately for us is going to mean that they get to resolve the effect of Runic Fountain for 3 here. Oh god, it's just got to be nothing, I think. And they do find a Toy Tank and 1 Whitewood card. They're going to lead with Smiting Storm. No, not my pieces! Okay, they actually did miss the pieces, thank goodness. They'll Runic Fountain for 1, and thank goodness they finally found a starter. Here comes Elzeth. They'll go Toy Tank in order to summon it back, then normal summon this copy of a Stellar. They'll activate the effect in order to grab a copy of Sylvie, and then afterwards they can trigger the Graveyard effect to reset the Tales of the White Forest. They're going to grab a Woes before going into the one, the only Reclea, and then they'll activate the effect of the Woes and the Esteller in order to set the Woes and summon back the Esteller. Next up is Diabel. They'll activate the effect in order to grab back this Infip, and they'll go ahead and cycle this copy of Sylvie as well. Finally, they'll go into Silvera, at which point we are prompted with the Exod Fires of Rage. Let's go ahead and get rid of the entire field as they set 1 card. They realize they can't kill us on the crackback or stop the Exodia, and they will concede. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing, thank God, not Fiendsmith Snake Eye. They're playing Fiendsmith Yubel, which is at least a little bit better. We're going first to game 1, we're going to begin with the Shield of the Millennium Dynasty. Opening this is great because it gets us Ankh before we have to pay 10 billion life points. We'll go ahead and grab our Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. They will go for the Veiler. We can't trigger its end phase effect, which is hilarious because we've actually drawn the Exod Fires of Rage. They're going to go for the Fiendsmith and follow it up with a Tractus. They'll go ahead and grab a copy of Lurry and activate the graveyard effect of the Lurry, summoning it before they go into a Requiem. They'll activate the effect of the Requiem for a Fiendsmith, and then afterwards they can activate the Requiem targeting the Fiendsmith, and then the Fiendsmith targeting the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. Thankfully, we do have this copy of Infip to contest that. We will keep our Exodia, but they will go Fiendsmith in order to summon him, and they're off to the races. Down comes a Sequence. We'll Exod Fires of Rage to get rid of it, and they will normal summon a Samsara D Lotus. No! Spirit of Yubel is going to trigger here and get them a copy of Nightmare Pain. They'll flip up that Nightmare Pain and cycle for the Lotus for the Phantom of Yubel prior. We will try and negate the effect of the Nightmare Pain, but they have planned for it by using the effect of the Phantom of Yubel to tag into a Spirit of Yubel into a Yubel. Finally, Pain is going to pop that sucker, and they will trigger the effect of the Yubel for the Terror Incarnate. Next up is Grave Squirmer. That's going to be summoned, followed by an Unchained Soul of Yama. They're going to go ahead and activate the graveyard effect of the Grave Squirmer, bring back the Spirit of Yubel, make a Rage, and then Sharvara popping the Rage in order to summon the Sharvara, trigger the effect of the Rage and the effect of the Yama in order to summon out both the Fiendsmith and cycle back the Spirit of Yubel. Finally, they're going to make a Phantom of Yubel and a Wave Hiking Caesar before setting Abominable Chamber and getting over for a ton of life points. We are down to 2 hundo. We draw for turn, and let's just go next. Pretty debilitating loss, but thankfully our game 2 hand looks a lot better. There's a hand right there, for instance. We'll go for Wedju Temple to begin with. We will set that hand with a Senenjin. We'll activate the effect in order to summon it, then activate its effect to grab a copy of the Shield. Shield into the back row. We'll pay an additional 2 in order to summon the Shield, and the Shield is going to grab us the Ankh. From here we can activate the Ankh, and the Unstoppable Exodia is now out. We have brought him to the field. We'll shuffle everything back, set 1, activate the effect at end step, and go for an Exod Fires of Rage. Our opponent's going to draw for turn and infip the Exodia. No, that forces our negate. They're going to Cosmic Cyclone next, and they do hit the Exod Fires of Rage. Things are not looking good. They're going to go to main phase into an opening of the Spirit Gates. That's going to grab them a DBB. They're going to activate the effect of the DBB in order to grab another opening of the Spirit Gates and the extra normal for Chaos Summoning Beast into Moon, into Requiem, into Ash Blossom. Okay, well, that's actually not terrible. They're going to go for opening the Spirit Gates. We will chain the effect of Silo Hat Trick. They'll bring back Spirit of Yubel, activate it as CL1. We will activate Silo Hat Trick as CL2, and it is negated. They will end on a copy of Phantom of Yubel, but they don't even attack in because, of course, there's no Nightmare Pain with which to deal with us. We'll go Unstoppable Exodia into Obliterate Blaze at the end step. We'll take 1 and go into Closed World before going for a second Millennium Ankh and Obliterate Blazing into a huge beefy boy. We'll take 15 here. All 5 pieces of the puzzle will deal 10. Okay, looks good. So it's time for that all-important game 3, and oh god, wow, non-engine much? They're going to go opening the Spirit Gates. We're going to chain Dimensional Shifter. Afterwards, we're going to go ahead and normal summon a copy of Dark Beckoning Beast, using it to grab a Chaos Summoning Beast, following it up with Mature Chronicle, extra normal on the Chaos Summoning Beast into SP Little Knight, into a Phantom of Yubel from hand, and pass. We will end step go Magnamut, targeting this copy of Dimension Shifter, then activating the on-field effect, resolving it to get a copy of Druis Worm, and then drawing for turn. That's not a bad one. We'll go Pot of Prosperity here. We got to find something off the top. Oof, not good. Okay, the Lava Golem at least deals with the board. We'll go for the Golem afterwards. We'll take a fat 2. Then afterwards, we will go ahead and grab the Wedju Temple, activate the effect in order to go ahead and set this Crystal Beast Cobalt Eagle into the back row where it belongs, and then shield into an Ankh. We'll activate the effect of the Ankh and summon our Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, shuffling everything else back and increasing our Exodia's attack to 4,000. We're getting in for a fair amount, but not the end of the game amount, and then we'll set a copy of Exod Fires of Rage as our opponent draws for turn. They're going to lead with this copy of Tractus. We will negate it with the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate, I believe. Then they'll normal summon a Lurry, at which point we can Exod Fires of Rage to wipe the board, prompting a pass. We will go ahead and set this copy of Obliterate Blaze, draw for turn, and this should be all she wrote. Let's just activate the effect, take 1,000, go for the effect of the Exod Fires of Rage in order to add back the head and get in for lethal with head on field. Who said these pieces did nothing? So we're back with the deck, and wow, didn't expect that, but happy to have seen it happen. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. Millennium Ankh as a singular card gives you both a spell trap negate tied to a monster that can't be destroyed by card effects and a chainable board wipe trap when you go first. If you can hard draw it going second, you get an 8,000 attack body for a surprise OTK, a la Utopia Double. 2. Senenjin just gets you full combo. So does Wedju and Golem or plus any monster, so the deck is quite consistent with accessing its boss monster at a minimum and fairly often. 3. The deck doesn't use its normal summon, so you get to play breakers like Lava Golem and Sphere Mode that are just anti-synergy and other strategies. There's also a fair amount of non-engine space, and it can play Shifter without issue too. And the cons. 1. The deck is very vulnerable to Ash and Droll, and Ogre. An Asher and Ogre on Shield cuts you off from Ankh, which reduces the ceiling of your board massively. Not seeing Ankh in your hand means you pay a lot of life points, sometimes down to 2,000, weakening your boss monster and putting you at an easy risk of OTKs. 2, your most standard end board has a powerful board wipe and 2 negates, but that's it. It's not much, and it's centralized around the board wipe, keeping your opponent out of the game. You have to hold your interrupts as much as possible and time them for maximum disruption, or you'll get punished. Fiendsmith is a huge problem for this because you have to negate Tract, or at least Engraver equipped with Requiem, or the board wipe is going to be wasted. And finally, 3, the engine requirement includes 5 garnets that do not do anything unless you draw all of them. I'm sure you're going to pull off an Exodia win once every so often, but many hands are going to have 1 to 2 dead head pieces just rotting. Overall, as fun as this deck may be, it's more of a cute gimmick and less of a rogue strategy. For now, it seems like the only purpose of Millennium is as free bodies for Fiendsmith. So that's that. These 10-minute testings are subsidized by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons. So I'm going to rattle off the names of some of the higher tier ones right now. Thank you all so much. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. Slifer274, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ali, Brett Henry, Canner, Seaweed, Darkmaster Zork, Derp and Dragon, Devin Senpai, DJ Elefante, FBS Lord Derp, Gravity, John Piet, Juan Cruz Avila Zati, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Master of Faster, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Project Mercury, Rose Lapine, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, Your Pot of Greed Does What, and Yuki.